Let me tell you something about humans.
No.
Seriously. Sit down and let me tell you something that will save your life one day if you ever happen to encounter one of these absolute lunatics in a drinking establishment. Because 3 cycles ago I learned a lesson that cost me my favorite table, 2 perfectly good stools, and nearly my sanity. My name is Rix, and I run the Rusty Comet. It is, or rather was, the finest bar on Terminus Hub Station. Notice I said was, past tense. And yes, we will get to why in a moment. But first you need to understand the setup here. Terminus Hub sits at the edge of the Outer Reach territories. Right where civilized space meets the kind of space where people stop asking questions about your cargo manifest. We get all types here. Glendari smugglers with their 4 arms and bad attitudes, Vortex traders who smell like sulfur and rotting vegetation, Morphid information brokers who shift shapes like I change bar towels, even the occasional Zenther Fury diplomats slumming it before heading back to their pristine core worlds. Point is, I have seen things. I have handled things. I once broke up a fight between a Gorvan berserker and 3 Hectarian mercenaries using nothing but a stun baton and my winning personality. The Gorvan, for those not in the know, stands at roughly 8 feet tall and can bench press a small transport vehicle. So yes, I know how to run a bar in rough territory. Then this human walks in. Now, I had heard of humans. Everyone had heard of humans by that point. They had made quite the entrance onto the galactic stage about 20 cycles back, and the rumors had been flying ever since. Some said they were Deathworlders from a planet so hostile that their own weather systems tried to kill them regularly. Others claimed they were genetic experiments gone wrong, engineered for aggression and stubbornness. A few paranoid types even whispered they were a warrior species kept in check by their own primitive technology, until they finally cracked faster than light travel and came spilling out into the galaxy like a dam breaking. But rumors are just rumors, right? I mean, how dangerous could one species really be? We had survived first contact with the Krell, and they literally breathed ammonia and thought honor duels to the death were appropriate ways to settle parking disputes. Surely humans could not be worse than that. Oh, how beautifully, catastrophically wrong I was. He did not look like much at first glance. Maybe 6 feet tall, which put him at average height for the bar. Brown hair, kind of messy, like he had just woken up or stopped caring about grooming standards somewhere around the 3rd solar system. He wore a simple gray jacket over a black shirt, standard-issue cargo pants, and boots that had seen better days. His face had that worn look that traders and haulers get when they have been jumping between systems for too long without proper sleep. The thing that should have tipped me off, the thing I kick myself for missing, was his eyes. They had this look, not threatening exactly. More like calm, too calm, the kind of calm you see in predators who know they are at the top of the food chain and have nothing to prove. He walked up to my bar at around 3rd shift, which was our busy time. The place was packed. Gorth and his Klendari crew were celebrating some successful run in the corner booth. Kelva, a Vortlax merchant I had known for years, was nursing her 3rd glass of fermented kelp juice at the bar. A group of Hectarian miners were playing cards near the back, and Thrum, my regular pain in the posterior, was already 3 drinks deep and getting philosophical about the nature of space-time to anyone who would listen. The human sat down on a stool 2 spots away from Kelva. She shifted slightly, her sensory tendrils twitching. I noticed. Everyone noticed. Because here is the thing about Vorkalax. They can predators. It is a survival instinct from their homeworld, where everything with teeth wanted to eat them, and Kelva, tough as she was, just moved away from this human like he was radioactive. That should have been warning sign number 2. What can I get you? I asked, sliding over with my best professional smile. The one that says I have seen everything and nothing surprises me anymore. The human looked at me, and his mouth quirked up in this small smile. Friendly. Approachable even. Water, please, he said. I blinked all 3 of my eyes in sequence, which is the Verlian equivalent of a double take. Water, I repeated, just to make sure my translator was working correctly. Yep, just water. Cold if you have got it, room temperature is fine if not. Now let me explain something about bar culture in the Outer Reach. You do not order water, you just do not. Water is free, sure, everyone needs it, but you do not sit at a bar during busy hours and order water. You order the cheapest rotgut liquor available, you order something with actual value, or you get out. Ordering water at a bar is like walking into a weapons shop and asking for a pamphlet on conflict resolution. technically allowed but missing the entire point. Listen, friend, I said, leaning on the bar with both primary arms. You sure you want just water? We have got Honduran whiskey, Plaxian ale, Zenthari wine, even some Terran imports if you are feeling nostalgic. Just water is fine, he said, still smiling. I am not drinking tonight. Not drinking, I said flatly. Not drinking. You came to a bar to not drink. That is correct. I stared at him. He stared back, completely unbothered by my confusion. Behind me I heard Thrum snort with laughter. Did the human just order water? Thrum called out, his voice already slurred from the Bortaxian rum he loved so much. What is next? Is he going to order a salad too? Maybe some cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off? A few laughs rippled through the bar. The human did not react, just kept looking at me with those calm, patient eyes. One water coming up, I muttered, reaching for a glass. This was fine. Weird, sure, but fine. I would serve him his water. He would sit there for 10 minutes feeling awkward, and then he would leave. Problem solved. I filled the glass from the purification tap. The good water, not the recycled station stuff. Even weird customers deserve decent service. I set it down in front of him with perhaps more force than necessary. There you go, one water. Enjoy. Thanks, he said, picking it up and taking a sip. He nodded appreciatively. Good water. Very clean. Minimal mineral content, but not completely stripped. Nice balance. Who critiques water? Who does that? Glad it meets your standards, I said, my sarcasm filters completely disengaged at this point. He set the glass down and looked around the bar, taking everything in. His gaze swept over the Klandari crew, the card game, the various patrons scattered throughout the establishment, not nervous looking, just observing. Like he was cataloging everything he saw. Busy night, he commented. Third shift usually is, I replied, wiping down the bar even though it was already clean. Anything to avoid this deeply uncomfortable conversation. The human ordered water, Thrum announced to the entire bar, because apparently he had decided to make this his mission for the evening. Did everyone hear that? The scary Deathworlder human ordered water. I bet he also asks for directions and says please and thank you. More laughter. The human took another sip of his water, completely unconcerned. Your friend seems to have opinions, he said to me quietly. Thrum has opinions about everything when he is drunk, which is always. You get used to it. I am sure I will. Something about the way he said that made my spine ridges tingle. Not a threat exactly. More like a statement of fact. Kelva leaned over from her spot at the bar, keeping a careful distance from the human. Rix, can I ask why there is a human in your establishment? Her voice had that slightly panicked edge that Vorthax get when their danger sense is screaming at them. Because it is a public bar and he has not done anything wrong, I said, trying to sound reasonable while also wondering if maybe I should have stricter door policies. He is a human, she hissed, like that explained everything. I can hear you, the human said pleasantly, not even turning around. Just so you know, your translation matrix is projecting at full volume. And yes, I am a human. Name is Marcus, by the way. Marcus Trent. Kelva's sensory tendrils went completely rigid. The human Marcus turned slightly on his stool to face her. Sorry if I am making you nervous, he continued. That is not my intention. I just stopped in for a drink before my ship finishes refueling. I will be out of your hair or tendrils or whatever in about an hour. You ordered water, Thrum called out again, because apparently he was stuck on this point like a corrupted data file. What kind of dangerous Deathworlder orders water? Are you going to ask for a flower arrangement next? Maybe some mood lighting. Thrum, I warned. Leave it alone. But Thrum, blessed with the intelligence of a particularly dim asteroid, did not leave it alone. No, I want to know, he said, sliding off his stool and weaving his way toward the bar. Everyone talks about how scary humans are, how they are from some nightmare death planet, how they fought off a Krell warfleet using nothing but stubbornness and improvised weapons. But this one orders water. Water, like my grandmother. And she has been dead for 15 cycles. Marcus set his glass down very carefully on the bar. He turned fully to face Thrum, who had now planted himself right next to the human. They were about the same height, though Thrum had the stockier build common to Bortaxian miners. You are absolutely right, Marcus said, his voice still friendly. I did order water, because I am the designated pilot for my ship, and I do not drink before flying. Call me crazy, but I prefer not to crash into asteroids or, space stations. Scared of a little drink? Thrum sneered. Some death worlder you are. Thrum, I said louder this time. Back off. Now, why? He is just a human. Probably all talk anyway. I bet they exaggerate everything about their planet. Dangerous weather, they say. Hostile wildlife, they claim. I bet it is all propaganda to make themselves seem tougher than they actually are. Marcus took a slow breath in through his nose, held it, then let it out. I recognized that gesture. I had seen it before in other species. It was the universal sign of someone trying very hard not to do something they would regret. My planet, Marcus said slowly, has storms that can level entire cities. We have animals that weigh 6 tons and can run 30 miles per hour. Our oceans have creatures in them that make your worst nightmares look like children's entertainment. Our own atmosphere periodically tries to kill us with temperature swings, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods. And you know what we did? We built cities anyway. We survived anyway. We thrived anyway. Big talk, Thrum said, but I noticed his confidence was wavering slightly. Not talk fact, but here is the thing. Marcus leaned in slightly, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. We did not survive all that by being stupid. We survived by being smart, adaptable, and incredibly stubborn. So when I order water instead of alcohol before piloting a multi-ton spacecraft through a debris field, that is not weakness. That is common sense. Something you might want to look into. Drummond's face, already reddish from drink, turned a darker shade of purple. Are you calling me stupid? I am calling you drunk and looking for a fight. 2 things I am familiar with, having spent a lot of time in bars across about 50 different systems. 50 systems. Thrum laughed. His pup thinks he is well traveled. 217 planets. Actually, Marcus corrected. 53 space stations, including this one. 4 asteroid colonies, and 1 very uncomfortable week on a generation ship where the recycling system had broken down and everything smelled like feet. The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. Even Gorth and his crew had stopped their celebration to pay attention. You are saying you have been to 217 planets, Thrum said skeptically. Give or take a few moons that might technically count. I have been hauling cargo for 8 years. You cover a lot of ground in 8 years. Cargo, Thrum snorted. So you are a delivery boy. That makes it even better. The big scary human is a delivery boy who orders water. I saw Marcus's jaw tighten. Just for a second. Then it relaxed again. I prefer freight specialist, but sure, delivery boy works. What do you even deliver? Care packages? Birthday presents? Whatever pays, Marcus said simply. Medical supplies, mining equipment, terraforming components, livestock, scientific instruments, the occasional diplomatic courier package that people really do not want getting blown up by pirates. Pirates? Thrum scoffed. Right, I am sure you have fought off dozens of pirates with your water and your sensible decision-making. 17 times, actually. Well, 17 attempted boardings. Only 13 of those turned into actual fights. The other 4 times they took one look at my ship's modifications and decided they had better things to do. Your ship has modifications, Thrum said, his tone suggesting he did not believe a word of it. Every ship has modifications if you are smart about it. Mine just happened to be a bit more aggressive than most. Aggressive? Like what? A strongly worded warning message? Marcus smiled, and something about that smile made my spine ridges stand completely upright. I welded a mining laser to the cargo bay doors and rigged it to a manual firing system. Technically not legal in most core systems, but out here in the outer reach, nobody asks questions. I also installed reinforced hull plating around the crew compartment and added a few surprise packages to the exterior that activate if someone tries to cut through without permission. Non-lethal mostly, but very effective at convincing people to go bother someone else. Thrum stared at him. You are making that up. I am really not. I can show you the maintenance logs if you want, or better yet, I can take you out to the docking bay and give you a tour. Might be educational. I do not need education from a human drinking water, Thrum snarled. And there it was. The point where things were going to go wrong. I could feel it in the air, that electric tension that happens right before someone throws a punch or pulls a weapon. Thrum, I said, my voice carrying the weight of someone who had broken up 100 bar fights. Walk away. Go back to your table. Finish your drink. Do not do whatever you are thinking about doing. Why? Are you scared of him too? Is everyone in this bar scared of one human sitting alone drinking water? Marcus sighed, and it was the sigh of someone who had been through this exact scenario too many times before. Look, friend, he said. I do not want trouble. I really do not. I just want to finish my water, wait for my ship to fuel up and get back on the trading routes. Can we do that? Can we just let me sit here in peace? No, Thrum said flatly. No, I do not think we can, because you know what I think. I think humans are overrated. I think you have all gotten very lucky, and everyone is too scared to call your bluff. Marcus set his water glass down on the bar very carefully, with the kind of precise control that suggested he was measuring the exact amount of force needed. Not too hard, not too soft, just right. This is not a bluff, he said quietly. Prove it. And that, right there, was the exact moment I knew my table was doomed. Marcus stood up slowly, deliberately, his movements controlled and fluid. He was not big, not really, not compared to Gorth or Thrum or half a dozen other species in the bar. But something about the way he moved made him seem bigger, more present, like he was taking up more space than his physical form actually occupied. You want me to prove it, Marcus said. Not a question. Yeah, I want you to prove it. Show us all what makes humans so special. Marcus looked at me. I looked back. I could see him asking the silent question. Was this going to happen no matter what? I gave him the smallest shrug. Because yes, it was. Thrummond had that look in his eyes, the look of someone who had decided violence was the only acceptable outcome and would keep pushing till he got it. Marcus nodded. Just once. Then he picked up the table. Not my table at the bar. That would have been manageable. No. He walked over to the heavy reinforced table that Gorth and his crew had been sitting at, the one made from compressed durasteel alloy because regular furniture kept breaking during the rowdier nights. The one that weighed, and I am not exaggerating here, at least 300 pounds. He picked it up with both hands, lifted it over his head like it weighed nothing at all, and then brought it down onto the floor with a sound like a meteor impact. The table split clean in half. The entire bar went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when everyone's brain has just blue screen trying to process what they just witnessed. Marcus looked at the two halves of my best table now lying in pieces on the floor. Then he looked at Thrum, who had gone from purple to a sort of grayish color that suggested his circulatory system was having second thoughts about its current situation. That, Marcus said calmly, is what happens when you make me prove something. I did not want to. You insisted. So there you go, proof. Humans are in fact strong enough to break your furniture when properly motivated. He walked back to the bar, sat down on his stool, and picked up his water glass like nothing had happened. Sorry about the table, Vish, he said to me. I will pay for it, and probably extra for the inconvenience. Call it 500 credits. I just stared at him, then at the destroyed table, then back at him. 500 credits, I repeated numbly. If that is not enough, name your price. I know good tables are hard to come by out here. Gorth stood up from where he had been sitting, his forearms flexing in what I recognized as a Klendari threat display. That was our table, he growled, his voice like rocks grinding together. Marcus turned to look at him, water glass still in hand, was being the key word. Marcus said. Past tense. Also, you were not using it anymore. You all stood up when I walked over. You destroyed property, Gorth continued, taking a step forward. I destroyed my property, Marcus corrected, since I just bought it from Vex for 500 credits, which makes it mine to do with as I please. Basic commerce. Gorth's translator chip was clearly struggling with this logic, because he just stood there making a grinding noise that might have been confusion. Look, Marcus said, addressing the entire bar now. I get it. You have all heard stories about humans. Some of them are probably exaggerated. Some of them are probably not exaggerated enough. But here is the thing you need to understand. We are not looking for fights. We do not go around breaking things just to prove we can. We just want to do our jobs, make our living, and go about our business in peace. He took another sip of water. However, he continued, and this is important, so listen carefully. However, if you push us, if you insist on testing us, if you absolutely will not let us just sit quietly and drink our water in peace, well then you get exactly what you asked for, and usually that ends with something broken. Tonight it was a table. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. Drummond had backed up about 5 feet during this speech, which I considered very wise of him. "So here is my proposal," Marcus said. "I finish my water. I pay Rix for the table, plus, let us say another 200 credits for everyone's trouble. Then I leave. You all go back to your evening, and we never speak of this again. Sound good?" Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was like the entire bar was holding its breath. "I said sound good?" Marcus repeated, his voice a little harder this time. A few heads nodded. Thrum, to his credit or perhaps his survival instinct, nodded very vigorously. "Excellent," Marcus said, finishing his water in one long drink. He set the empty glass down and pulled out a credit chip. "Rix, if you could process 700 credits, 5 for the table, 2 for the trouble." I took the chip with numb fingers and ran it through the reader. Sure enough, 700 credits, transferred without a single question or complaint. "Pleasure doing business," Marcus said, standing up. "Apologies again about the furniture. You run a nice place here. Would recommend it to other travelers, even if the clientele can be a bit rowdy." He nodded to me, gave a small wave to the rest of the bar, and walked out. Just like that. Calm as could be. Like he had not just broken a 300-pound table with his bare hands and fundamentally altered everyone's understanding of human capabilities. The door closed behind him. 3 seconds passed. Then 5. Then Kelva was the first one to speak. "Did that just happen?" she whispered, her tendrils still rigid with shock. "That just happened," I confirmed, staring at the credit chip reader like it held the secrets of the universe. "He broke the table," Gorth said slowly, processing this information. "With his hands, just picked it up and broke it." "That was a durasteel alloy table," one of the Hectarian miners added. "We use equipment made from that stuff to break apart asteroids." "Humans," Thrum muttered, finally finding his voice again. "Humans are terrifying." "You think?" I snapped, my patience finally breaking. "You think maybe, just maybe, all those rumors were based on something real? You think perhaps provoking a member of a species known for fighting off Krulla warfleets was not your brightest idea?" Drummond had no response to that. Probably because his brain was still trying to restart after witnessing a human casually destroy my furniture. I looked down at the credit chip in my hand. 700 credits. More than enough to replace the table and the lost business from everyone being too shocked to drink for the next hour. Hell, it was enough to upgrade to a better table. But somehow I do not think any table in this bar will ever feel quite as secure as it did before Marcus Trent ordered water and proved exactly why humans have the reputation they do. And that, my friends, is part 1 of the story. How a human ordered water at my bar, got challenged by a drunk idiot, and broke my best table like it was made of cheap plastic instead of compressed durasteel alloy. Part 2? Part 2 is about what happened when Marcus came back 3 days later, and things got even stranger. But that is a story for another time. Right now, I need to order a new table, figure out if reinforced durasteel is even worth it anymore, and maybe, just maybe, consider putting up a sign that says, "Do not provoke the humans." Though something tells me nobody in my bar needs that reminder anymore. 3 days. I had 3 glorious days of peace after Marcus Trent walked out of my bar. 3 days where nobody challenged anyone to prove their species' superiority. 3 days where my patrons drank their drinks, played their games, and kept their opinions about Deathworlders to themselves. 3 days where I started to think that maybe, just maybe, things could go back to normal. Then he walked back in. Same jacket, same messy hair, same boots that had seen way too many docking bays. But this time, he was not alone. Behind him walked 2 more humans. A woman with short red hair, wearing a pilot suit that had more pockets than should be legally necessary, and a younger guy, maybe mid-20s by human standards, with dark skin and the kind of nervous energy that suggested he had recently consumed too much caffeine or was about to do something spectacularly stupid. Possibly both. The bar was moderately full. Second shift this time, so a different crowd than before. A group of morphid traders in the corner. Some Zunthari officials pretending they were not slumming it. A few independent haulers like myself who just wanted a drink after a long cycle, and Kelva, because Kelva was always there, still recovering from her previous encounter with humanity. Marcus walked up to the bar. The other 2 humans followed. Kelva made a sound like a deflating balloon and immediately relocated to the far end of the establishment. "Evening, Bricks," Marcus said, settling onto the same stool he had occupied 3 days ago. "How have you been?" "Better before you walked in," I replied honestly, because at this point why pretend otherwise? He laughed. Actually laughed. Like I had said something funny instead of expressing genuine concern for the continued structural integrity of my business. "Fair enough. Look, I want to apologize again for the table thing that got out of hand. You broke a 300-pound table with your bare hands because someone questioned your water order. Out of hand is an understatement. In my defense, he really would not let it go. Also, in your defense, you paid for it and tipped generously. The new table arrived yesterday. It is even heavier than the last one." "Good to hear. I will try not to break this one." "Please do." The red-haired woman slid onto the stool next to Marcus, grinning at me like we were old friends instead of complete strangers. "So this is the famous Rusty Comet," she said, looking around with obvious appreciation. "Marcus told us all about it. Nice place. Good atmosphere, smells like actual alcohol instead of recycled air and desperation." "Thank you, I think," I said carefully, trying to figure out if I was being complimented or insulted. "That is Riley," Marcus explained, gesturing to the woman. "My co-pilot and the reason my ship has not been impounded on at least 7 different stations for various registration irregularities." "Registration irregularities," Riley repeated. "Is that what we are calling it now? I prefer creative paperwork." "And this," Marcus continued, pointing to the nervous younger human, "is Jamie, our newest crew member. This is actually his first time on a station this far out in the outer reach. Be gentle." Jamie gave me a small wave that was equal parts friendly and terrified. "First time in the outer reach," I said. "That explains the look on your face." "What look?" Jamie asked, his voice cracking slightly. "The look that says you are wondering if you made a terrible life decision and whether it is too late to catch a transport back to civilized space. That is actually exactly what I am thinking right now. Stick with it," I advised. "The outer reach grows on you like a fungus. Technically unpleasant, but eventually you stop noticing." Riley burst out laughing at that. Marcus just smiled and shook his head. "So," I said, pulling out 3 glasses, "what can I get you folks? And please, for the love of all that is profitable, tell me you are ordering actual drinks this time." "Water for me again," Marcus said. I closed all 3 eyes in sequence, which in Brilliant body language roughly translates to "Why do you hate me specifically?" "Marcus," Riley said, "you cannot order water again. You broke this poor guy's table last time. At least order something with alcohol in it so he can make a profit." "I am flying tonight," Marcus said simply. "I am flying tonight," Riley countered. "You are on maintenance duty when we get back to the ship. Still prefer to stay sharp. You are the worst designated pilot ever. Jamie, back me up here." Jamie looked between them like a small animal caught between 2 larger predators. "I think, maybe, I should stay out of this," he offered weakly. "Smart kid," I muttered. "Fine," Marcus sighed. "1 Terran beer if you have got it. Something light." "Finally," Riley said. "A normal drink order. I will have whiskey. Whatever you have got that will not dissolve my stomach lining." "Jamie, do you have anything sweet? Like really sweet?" Riley and Marcus both turned to look at him. "Really sweet," I repeated. "It is my first time in a real space bar," Jamie said defensively. "I want something that tastes good, not something that tastes like engine coolant and regret." "I like him," I decided. "He has realistic expectations. I can make you a fusion fruit mixer. It is bright blue, tastes like candy, and has enough sugar to put a Clendari into a coma. Will also get you drunk faster than you can say poor life choices." "Perfect," Jamie said, visibly relaxing. I mixed their drinks, served them up, and tried very hard not to think about what might happen when 3 humans got alcohol in them instead of just water. Nothing good, probably, but at least they were paying customers this time. "So," I said, leaning on the bar, "what brings you all back here? I figured after the table incident you would avoid this place like a radiation leak." "Are you kidding?" Riley said. "Marcus told us the story. I had to see the famous table-breaking bar for myself. Plus, we have got a layover while some replacement parts come in for the ship. Figured we would check out the local entertainment." "Entertainment," I said slowly. "This is a bar. People drink. Sometimes they play cards. Occasionally they get in fights. That is the entertainment." "Sounds perfect." I did not like the way she said that. Too cheerful, too enthusiastic. Like someone who enjoyed chaos for its own sake. Marcus took a sip of his beer and glanced around the bar, doing that same cataloging thing he had done before. His eyes lingered on a table in the corner where 3 Hectarian miners were playing what looked like a serious game of quantum poker. High-stakes game over there, he observed.
Usually is, I confirmed.
Those 3 play every week. Big money changes hands. I take a small percentage for hosting. Everyone stays happy.
Anyone can join.
If you have got the credits and the nerve, why?
I dabble.
Riley snorted into her whiskey. He dabbles. Marcus, tell him about the time you won that cargo hauler in a card game. That was luck, Marcus said. It was skill and you know it. You counted cards for 6 straight hours while the other players got progressively drunker and more confident. By the end, that poor Vorthax captain did not know what hit him. In my defense, he bet his ship. I just accepted the terms. You cleaned him out, Riley corrected, took his ship, his cargo, and his dignity. Then you felt bad and gave him enough credits to book passage home and hire a lawyer to explain to his company what happened. Seemed like the right thing to do. I stared at Marcus. He stared back, completely unbothered. You won a ship in a card game. Technically, I won 2 ships in card games. The other one was smaller. I sold it for parts. Of course you did. Jamie had been quietly sipping his bright blue drink, but now he leaned forward, his eyes slightly unfocused in a way that suggested the alcohol was hitting him faster than anticipated. Can I ask a question? He said. Sure, kid, I replied. Why does everyone seem scared of us? Like, we walked in here and that lady with the tendrils practically ran away, and people keep staring at us. You are human, I said, like that explained everything. What? It did. So humans have a reputation. What kind of reputation? I looked at Marcus and Riley. They both shrugged, apparently content to let me field this one. All right, gather around, children, and let me tell you about humanity's reputation in the wider galaxy, I said, slipping into my storyteller voice. About 20 cycles back, humans made first contact with the Zenthari. Nice, peaceful first contact. Lots of cultural exchange. Everyone was very civilized. The Zenthari reported back that humans seemed pleasant, if a bit primitive technologically. Primitive, Riley muttered. That is rich coming from a species that still uses physical currency. 2 cycles later, I continued, ignoring her, the Krell showed up at a human colony world called Epsilon Station. The Krell, for those not familiar, are a warrior species that believes might makes right and that any species worth respecting should be able to defend themselves. They attacked the station expecting an easy victory and some entertaining combat practice. Oh boy, Jamie said. Oh boy is right. The humans, who at this point had exactly 3 military vessels in the entire system and maybe 200 trained soldiers, proceeded to fight off a Krell warfleet using a combination of civilian ships, mining equipment, improvised explosives, and what the official report described as terrifying levels of creative violence. We prefer the term adaptive problem-solving, Marcus said mildly. You turned cargo haulers into missile platforms. You used mining lasers as anti-ship weapons. One of your captains apparently rammed a Krell destroyer with a transport ship full of explosive mining charges and then evacuated via escape pod at the last second. Captain Torres, Riley said fondly. She is a legend now. They named a ship after her. The Krell retreated, I continued. Which they never do, ever. They retreated, regrouped, and then came back with an even bigger fleet, because apparently humans had impressed them enough to warrant a proper war, and we fought them to a standstill, Marcus added. 3 years of back and forth before both sides agreed that maybe peace was a better option than mutually assured destruction. So now, I concluded, everyone knows that humans are from a death world, are basically impossible to intimidate, will use anything and everything as a weapon if necessary, and have a cultural emphasis on never giving up no matter how bad the odds look. Hence, people are nervous around you. Jamie looked down at his bright blue drink, processing this information. He said finally. That is actually kind of cool. It is terrifying. I corrected. Your species is terrifying. We are really not that bad, Marcus said. Most of us just want to do our jobs and live peaceful lives. Until someone challenges you about ordering water and you break their furniture. Fair point. The door to the bar opened and I felt my stomach drop as I recognized who was walking in. Galalt, a Gorvan bounty hunter who had been banned from my establishment twice already for starting fights and once for trying to intimidate information out of one of my regular customers. Big, mean, and dumb as a box of spare parts. He scanned the room, his small eyes settling on Marcus and his crew. Then he smiled, which on a Gorvan looks less like happiness and more like a threat display. "Oh no," I muttered. "Problem?" Marcus asked, noticing my reaction. "Big problem. That is Krelt. He is bad news on his best days. This is not going to be one of his best days." "Why not?" "Because he hates humans. Something about his brother getting killed in the Krell war fighting on the Krell side. He blames your entire species for it. His brother fought for the Krell," Riley said. "Against us? And he is mad that we won. Logic is not Krell's strong suit." Krelt walked up to the bar, his 8-foot frame making everyone else look small by comparison. He planted himself directly behind Marcus, looming. "Human," he growled. Marcus took a sip of his beer and did not turn around. "That is my species, yes." "Good observation. You know who I am?" "No idea, should I?" Krelt's face turned a darker shade of red. "I am Krellet, bounty hunter, warrior, and I do not like humans." "Okay," Marcus said, still not turning around. "That is your right. Free galaxy and all that. Is there something I can help you with, or are you just making conversation? Turn around when I talk to you. I am drinking my beer. When I finish my beer, I will turn around. Patience is a virtue." I saw Krellet's massive hand reach for Marcus's shoulder, and I started calculating how much of my bar was about to be destroyed in the coming fight. Probably all of it, honestly. But before Krelt could make contact, Riley spun on her stool and looked up at him with a smile that would have made a shark nervous. "Hi there," she said brightly. "Quick question. Are you about to put your hand on my captain?" Krelt looked down at her. "What is it to you?" "Just clarifying. Because if you are about to touch him without permission, I am going to break 4 of your fingers. If you are not about to touch him, then we are all good and you can walk away. Your choice, really." Krellet laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the glasses on the bar. "You break my fingers? You are half my size, human." "3/4, Riley corrected. "I am 3/4 your size. Let's be accurate here. And yes, I will break 4 of your fingers. Not all of them. Just 4. I like to leave people functional enough to learn from their mistakes. I would like to see you try." "Would you though?" "Because I feel like you are saying that, but you have not actually thought through what happens next. See, here is how this plays out. You touch Marcus. I break your fingers. Then Marcus, who is in a good mood because he is drinking beer instead of water, breaks something much more important. Then my friend Jamie over here, who looks like he could not hurt a fly, well, we have been training him in zero-gravity combat and he is surprisingly good at joint locks. So really, you are looking at 3-on-1 odds. And buddy, those are not good odds." Krellet stared at her, then at Marcus, then at Jamie, who waved nervously with his bright blue drink. "You are bluffing," Krellet said, but his hand had moved away from Marcus's shoulder. "Only one way to find out," Riley said cheerfully. "Want to test the hypothesis." The bar had gone quiet again. Apparently I was running some kind of experimental psychology lab, instead of a drinking establishment. Every few days someone tested the humans. Every few days they learned something new. Marcus finally turned around on his stool, looking up at Krellet with that same calm expression he had worn when Throman challenged him. "Look," Marcus said, "I am sorry about your brother. Genuinely. War is terrible and people die and it is never fair, but I did not kill him. Most humans did not kill him. A very small number of humans, in a specific place, at a specific time during a war that neither side really wanted, ended up in combat with Krell forces and their allies. That is not on me. That is not on Riley. That is definitely not on Jamie, who was probably in elementary school when it happened." "I was 12, Jamie confirmed. "See? Elementary school. So if you want to be angry at the situation. Be angry at the Krella for starting it. Be angry at your brother for choosing the wrong side. But do not be angry at 3 random humans in a bar who are just trying to drink in peace." Krellet's jaw worked like he was chewing gravel. "Your species killed my brother." "Or killed your brother," Marcus corrected gently. "Or kills lots of people. That is why most of us try to avoid it when possible. You are cowards. We are practical. There is a difference. My brother was a warrior. He died with honor. I am sure he did. And I am sure he believed in what he was fighting for. But he was on the wrong side of that fight. And sometimes being on the wrong side means you lose. That is not cowardice. That is reality. Krilt stood there, breathing heavily, his fists clenched at his sides. I could see him running through options in his head. Fight and risk 3 trained humans ganging up on him. Walk away and look weak. Stay and argue and get nowhere because Marcus had already deflated his entire argument. Finally, he made a choice. I am watching you humans, he growled. All of you. One mistake, one wrong move and I will be there. Noted, Marcus said. Enjoy your evening. Krilt turned and stomped out of the bar, leaving a wake of tension behind him. Riley picked up her whiskey and drained it in one go. Well, she said, that was fun. Can we do it again tomorrow? Please no, I said. Please, for the love of profit margins and structural stability. No. Marcus finished his beer and set the empty glass on the bar. How much for the drinks? 40 credits. He handed over a credit chip. Keep the change, and sorry about Krellet. We seem to attract trouble. You think? I said, processing the payment. Marcus, honest question. Do you go looking for these situations, or do they just find you? Little bit of both, he admitted. We do not start fights, but we do not back down from them either. And sometimes, that is enough to make people think twice. Your entire species is insane, possibly, but we are consistently insane, which counts for something. Jamie had finished his bright blue drink and was looking significantly more relaxed than when they had arrived. That was really good, he announced, to no one in particular. I think I want another one. You really do not, Riley said. Trust me, 1 fusion fruit mixer is your limit. 2 would put you on the floor, but it tastes so good. Lots of things that taste good will kill you. That is like lesson 3 of space travel. What is lesson 1? Do not touch anything glowing. What is lesson 2? Do not eat anything that smells sweet unless you know exactly what it is. These are good lessons, Jamie said seriously. I am learning so much. Marcus stood up, and Riley and Jamie followed suit. We should get going, Marcus said. Early morning tomorrow. Cargo pickup at 5th shift. What are you hauling this time? I asked, making conversation as I wiped down the bar. Medical supplies to a colony world in the Helix sector. Nothing exciting, just keeping people alive. Noble work. It pays the bills. Speaking of which, Marcus pulled out another credit chip and set it on the bar. This is for the quantum poker game. I looked at the chip, then at him. You are not playing. Not tonight, but I will be back next week, and I want a seat at that table. Consider this my entry fee. That is 500 credits. I know, should be enough to buy in. Marcus, those miners play for blood. They are serious gamblers. You could lose everything. He smiled. I could, but I probably will not. And with that cryptic statement, the 3 humans walked out of my bar for the 2nd time in a week. I stood there holding the credit chip, thinking about everything that had just happened. A Gorvan bounty hunter backing down from a fight. A human offering sympathy to someone who hated him. 3 members of a supposedly terrifying warrior species, just wanting to drink, socialize and maybe play some cards. Kelva crept back over to the bar, her tendrils finally starting to relax. Are they gone? She asked. They are gone. Thank the void. I thought for sure Krilt was going to start something. He almost did. Then he realized it was a bad idea. Smart of him. Those humans are dangerous. I thought about that. Dangerous. Yes. But also reasonable. Also fair. Also willing to walk away from fights when given the option. You know what, Kelva? I said. I think we have been looking at this all wrong. How so? We keep thinking humans are dangerous because they can fight, but I think they are dangerous because they can choose not to. They have all this strength, all this capability, and they just sit there drinking beer and being polite until you push them past a certain point. That is scarier than any warrior species I have ever met, because you never know where that point is until you cross it. Kelva thought about that for a moment. So what you are saying is, we should just let them drink their water, pay their tabs, and leave them alone. Exactly. Seems simple enough. You would think, but someone always tests them. Someone always pushes. And then my furniture suffers. The rest of the evening passed without incident. The quantum poker game continued. The Xanthuri officials got quietly drunk and pretended they did not have to work in the morning. The Morphid traders made deals in hushed voices, and I stood behind my bar polishing glasses and thinking about humans. A week later Marcus came back, alone this time. He walked straight to the quantum poker table, set down his credit chip and asked if they had room for one more player. The Hectarian miners looked at each other, then at Marcus. Then they nodded. 6 hours later, Marcus walked away from that table with enough credits to buy a small shuttle. The miners were not happy, but they were gracious about it. Good players recognizing another good player. Marcus stopped by the bar on his way out, setting a generous tip on the counter. "Thanks for hosting, Varks," he said. "You cleaned them out," I observed. "They will win it back eventually. Cards are like that. Up and down. You coming back next week?" "Probably. If that is okay with you." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Just a human, just a cargo hauler trying to make his way in the galaxy. But underneath that, something more. Something that had survived a death world, fought off a warrior species, and still managed to be polite about ordering water in bars. "Yeah," I said. "It is okay with me, just try not to break any more tables." "Deal." He left. I went back to running my bar. And you know what? Having a human as a regular was not so bad. Sure, he attracted trouble like a magnet attracts metal shavings. Sure, his presence made half my customers nervous. Sure, every week or two someone would challenge him to prove something and end up regretting it. But he was a good tipper. He paid his tabs on time. He never started fights, only finished them. And most importantly, he made it very clear to everyone else in the outer reach that the rusty comet was under his protection. Not officially, not explicitly, but word got around. Mess with Rix's bar and you might have to deal with Marcus Trent. The human who broke a Durasteel table with his bare hands, the human who won ships in card games. The human who could be your best friend or your worst nightmare depending entirely on how you treated him. And honestly, I could live with that. So here is what I learned about humans, in case you ever meet one at your bar or station or colony world. They are not monsters. They are not warriors. They are not unstoppable killing machines. They are just people trying to get by in a complicated galaxy. But if you push them, if you challenge them, if you absolutely refuse to let them sit quietly and drink their water in peace, well then you will learn very quickly why everyone else is scared of them. Because humans do not bluff. They do not exaggerate. They do not threaten. They just act quickly, decisively, effectively, and then they go right back to being polite, friendly, and tipping generously. That is humanity. That is what makes them terrifying. Not the strength, not the stubbornness, not even the death world they came from. It is the choice, the conscious, deliberate